7 o'clock at the Butte Silva Archives. Butte Historical Society is having Meaderville night, and tonight we'll be speaking about Meaderville before it disappeared.
Yeah. Okay, this is great.
We got tons of stuff. We got tons of stuff there. There's the first menu.
You get a job option for $4. It's like a T-bar.
Yeah. And you know how big it goes for Rob.
That's beautiful. Good.
Well, it's almost 5:07, so I might as well start. Now, my name is Glenn McCarthy. I'm not the president or even the vice president of this organization. Our acting president, Jim Courtney, who arranged this program tonight, unfortunately has had a family emergency and is unable to be here. He's arranged for a program tonight that all of you here know about, and Dr. Jim Silva is going to talk about Meaderville. Most of you probably know Dr. Silva was raised in Meaderville, worked in Meaderville, worked in supper clubs in Meaderville. You know that his family has been involved in leading his restaurant. Jim is a real expert on the Italians throughout this area, and has spent his entire life reminding everyone of the contributions of the Italians to the society and culture of this community, particularly the food. With that, I'd like to introduce our speaker this evening, Dr. Jim Silva.
When Mr. Courtney called, he said he wanted me to come up here and kind of relate to you what I could remember of Meaderville as a child and growing up down there. And I told him because of my age, it might be a very, very short meeting. The mind is going like this. But there are people here who lived in Meaderville much longer than I, and Louis is one of them, and of course Jimmy Matucci and Billy George, and they probably have far more experiences and memorable thoughts about Meaderville than I have. But I was born and raised in Meaderville. My parents were immigrants from Italy. There's a lot of folks who were. And how many of you here were ever in Meaderville? Just raise your hand. I'd like to see who wasn't. Well, for those of you who weren't or had never had the opportunity to see Meaderville, on the map here that I've got from Jim Michelati at Tech, if you went straight out Park Street, straight west, the park would make a turn to the north, where the pit is now. And that turn would bring you down and swing you right into Meaderville. And Meaderville was basically one street, the main street where all the nightclubs and things were at, and I'll get into that later. And we had South Meaderville, and we had North Meaderville, and then we had, I guess, Meaderville in the center. There are approximately 240 homes in Meaderville, as far as we could figure out, plus the boarding houses. Population, I talked with Matucci and I talked with Michelati, and that they figured the population could have been anywhere from 800 to 1,400 people at one time. And contrary to a lot of the opinions, it was not solid Italian. I lived on Wing Avenue, and that was in North Meaderville. And in Wing, I was surrounded by, God, he just died, Dan Hillen, and Mrs. Bennett, and Mrs. Stevens, and went on and on. But the whole street, there was only 4 Italian families on it. The rest of them were all English, all the way down the line. So there was quite a few that were not Italian that contributed to the wholesomeness of living in that wonderful area and that wonderful part of Butte. Most of the people down there were hardworking people, and a lot of us never had a lot of money, and yet there wasn't a child down there who had to go without food or warmth or dry because all the homes were open. You couldn't walk in without being fed or welcomed into the house. I think I'll get started by telling you that we had a lot of activities down there, and we'll get into those. But basically, my family was involved in the restaurant nightclub business. There were, at any one given time, at any one given hour of any one night, Meaderville could seat 1,450 people for dinner. That's at any hour. There was seating for over 1,300 people down there, and that's what they did do. Starting on the, let's start on one side of the street that'll help Louis. We had the Aero Cafe, we had the Savoy, we had La Trovatore, which became the Copper Club. We have La Campagna, which was across the street, and we had the Golden Fan, and of course we had Teddy's Rocky Mountain, which eventually burned down and he moved into the Golden Fan. I've got a notebook back there that I sat down someplace, and I don't know where I put it.
Oh, the yellow one?
Black one?
You know what this go for?
I must have left it on, but they like expires, no idea. I left it out. Yeah, thank you. I'm doing the wrong thing. Courtesy of Jim McLeod and Jim Matucci, there are two photo albums back there that will show you most of the original Main Street and the fire department and things like that that were part of Meaderville. And I told you about La Trovatore and Skibo Sandwich Shop, the Rocky Mountain Cafe, which was Teddy Parrish's. The Golden Fan was Charlie Actis. Some of you may have remembered his name. And saloons, we had the Top Hat, the Brass Rail, the Alpine, the Grove, Sam's Club, Rex's, the Calusa, and we had one place called the Sump. The Sump was down below Fagan's Pharmacy.
That was best.
That was a Bat's Sump, and that had to be the Sump. And grocery stores, of course, we had the Chivataris, the Miners Market, the Minimal Merc, we had Grosso's, we had Guidi Brothers, we had Gus's Tamales, and Conta's Grocery Store. This was all in that one small area. We also had a tailor. Taylor was up on the main street who made suits, and I have no idea, but he was next to Louie's dad's barber shop. And do you know?
No, I was going to say, one thing that I always thought was fascinating when you go to between the Brady Brothers,
Yeah.
sausage and salami.
Right. World famous, and we wouldn't give the recipe to anybody.
Yeah, but I mean, you thought that was their name, sausage and salami.
Sausage and salami.
Brady Brothers, sausage and salami.
Anyhow, there was a tailor shop. Yeah, I remember the sign too. There was a tailor shop plus the numerous boarding houses down there. You don't remember the tailor's name or who you called me that? I don't either. And we had a pharmacy. We had, of course, Scampienza's Bakery. And she supplied all the original breadsticks to all the nightclubs in Meaderville. The breadsticks were 3 feet long. Came in a box, 3 feet. They're about this big around, all different colors. And when as kids, you know, we used to sneak in and whack somebody over the head with it, just to break one. And they were kind of neat. There was, of course, the barber shops. Louis' dad and Fred Orso. We had gas stations. We had Suey's and Guy Ocello, who at that time wasn't selling GEs and tires, but he got into that. And we had of course, we were world renowned for making wine. And they brought the grapes in boxcars. And some of the cars, as far as I could find out, Cesarini used to bring in three railroad cars. And Meggio, a guy by the name of Meggio, I barely remember his name, he brought in 3. And Stefani used to bring in 4. Well, these are all refrigerated boxcars. And the nuns used to give us the time out of school to go down and help unload the grape cars when they came in. It was important to get those off. So they made a lot of wine. And then a little side story, they used to make some stuff called Grappo, which I knew nothing of. Never tasted it. It was funny about that because we'd go to school and walk across the bridge, and there's always a funny aroma of rubber tires, rubber burning. And I asked my dad, I said, one time my dad was very quiet, and I said, Thomas, what's with this, somebody's burning rubber down there, right off of the bridge. And he just kind of laughed. Finally, Elmer was leaving one day, said, I asked Elmer about the damn smell of rubber when I was a kid. Well, when they were making Grappo, in order to hide the fact that they were boiling it or cooking it, they'd take little pieces of inner tube, old rubber inner tube, throw it in the fire. The smoke would come out black, and you get the odor of rubber, which, try to keep the federal people from finding out that somebody was cooking something.